Commodities, how important are they? Kissinger said, control oil and you control the nations. Control food and you control the people. So when Dana Coverstone started telling about his prophetic dreams about long food lines and passing out food to distressed people, it really gets you to thinking. But this isn't the first time we've heard that. In February 2016, Heidi Baker said in one of her meetings, well-dressed people would be in bread lines all over America. So should we be surprised that we see these articles of long food lines increasing all over the country? Even in places like Hawaii. Just last week, video of long food lines waiting for food. When you read articles about China having their biggest record deal of buying corn from the U.S. in July, you might get excited. But then when you read articles about China struggling to meet the basic food demands, even where the Chinese president gets up and starts this whole clean plate campaign trying to get people only to serve what they will eat. And why? Because their river basin has overflowed 70% of their rice production. The worst flood since 1939, damaging millions of acres of product. Soaring prices on agricultural products. Pork prices rose 85%. Overall food prices increased 10%. Corn increased 20%, soybeans 30%. No wonder they're looking for food to help sustain their country. But they're not the only ones. Russia cuts off wheat and other grain exports. August 11th, if something doesn't happen quickly, global hunger crisis will be here by the end of 2020. Another article, global food prices have been rising during the coronavirus pandemic. Even in India, the world's largest food basket is struggling to get the food that they need for their citizens. Even in Australia, August 5th, supermarket warns of nationwide food shortage. So here's the interesting thing about Australia is they normally produce 800,000 tons of rice in a year. But they only produced 57,000 tons from 19 to 20. But for the nation of Australia, they consume around 300,000 tons, meaning they are short 250,000 tons of rice just for the consumption of their nation. So in the Doomsday Bible, when they say food can be used as currency, they're not 100% wrong. So if we look here at 1970, commodity prices were extremely low. And then we had the oil crisis, and what happened? All the prices of commodities went up. Again, with the oil crisis, same thing. Commodity prices rise when there's crisis. The glory days of the .com right into the 2000s, everything was great. All the commodity prices were extremely low. Between that and the housing crisis, commodity prices went up. Do you remember in 2010 how high gas and food prices were? So is it not astonishing that our commodity prices are really low right now? With any kind of drama that Dana Coverstone is talking about, commodity prices should go up, meaning that they would be good for trade. Another indicator is the stock market compared to the GDP. So if you remember in 1970s when commodity prices was really low, this is high, and then it sold off. Here's the 2000 .com boom at the high, and then the market sold off. Housing market at the high, and then it sold off. Here's the problem. Out of all four of these places in the market when they were at extreme highs, right now, we are at the highest of highs, indicating there could be a pretty severe sell-off. So in the Bible, we have the story of Joseph, and God gave the king of the country a dream of 7 good years and 7 bad years. He nor a lot of people knew what the dream meant, and so Joseph came along and interpreted, and then not only had an interpretation, but a plan of what was going to happen. So much so that even in the midst of the famine, they were able to take people in and help them and feed them. And people moved into this country because they had a plan and they had prosperity at the time of a famine. Which is so strange because did God want to punish Egypt, right? We say that famine is because of punishment, but was that God's narrative to punish Egypt? And it's so strange. Didn't God know that if he brought the Israelites into this country, that they would end up becoming slaves? And then one day he'd have to have Moses come and deliver them. What a big mess, right? But that's a whole nother interpretation. My thing about this is God showed an even wicked leader what was going to happen because he cares so much about people. And so it does sound negative when we talk about food shortages, right? Nobody wants that. And I think what's happened is, just as American, is that we've got so used to other people taking care of us. We've got used to our parents taking care of us, or our bosses taking care of us, or the government taking care of us, or even food banks, or, free subsidies taking care of us. It's all about being taken care of. Companies, right? We have power companies take care of our power for us. Make sure that our houses are cool in the summer, warm in the winter. We yield ourselves to the supermarkets to feed us, right? To produce our food so that we can have something to eat instead of going out and growing our own food or harvesting or any of these things. And I think because of all the things that we've given up a lot of freedoms. And it's like, then we're dependent on those people to take care of us. And so when we hear that they're not sufficiently going to be able to do that, it bothers us, right? And it's like, well, now I've got to step up to the plate. Well, now I've got to do something. Now I've got to stock the pantries. And now I've got to go hunting, or now I've got to do it. One, it's extra pressure and it's uncomfortable, right? Now, the thing that you've not done or you've not experienced in a long time of trying to grow something, do something, you have to learn how to do it. Or you can be inconvenienced by sitting in a long food line, or you can be inconvenienced by going and getting your own groceries. But with all of this, God gave the people the ability to have some insight, foresight, and be able to prepare to what was going to happen. And I think because we've let so much go that now it's like, oh my gosh, we feel so behind the eight ball of what I have to do to get even to an equal level of playing field, right? What if you don't have a generator? Well, I had a hurricane came through, no power for a week. Couldn't buy a generator. And so we were out of power because I yielded to the power company of thinking they would always have power for me. That's their job. That's what I pay them for. That's what they're going to do. And then they didn't. And so when Dana Coverstone starts talking about flicker and lights, when he starts talking about commodities not being so plentiful, right? He talked about people leaving gas stations empty. Why? Because there's no gas. Why? Because the ports are closed down. Why? He talks about long food lines. Why? I don't know exactly what it is that gets us to that point, but Heidi Baker said it, Dana Coverstone is saying it, and we're seeing it throughout the world in news articles. How much will it take for us to finally say, holy moly, what do I need to do for my family or the people around me? And I'm not trying to say it from a fear, doom, and gloom thing. I'm trying to say it from the standpoint of, if God loved Egypt enough to show them what was going to take place before it happened and gave them a plan, then doesn't he love us enough? Doesn't he love the people now of the world enough to give people a plan to let them be able to have the right resources? And for me, I'm not just thinking about what you need to do for your family. I'm talking directly to you right now, not just what you need to do for your family, but what about the family that won't listen and say, oh, you want to buy food because of a prophecy? Do you need to buy food for them? Do you need to help your local food bank? What about seeing this and saying, hey, I'll give you $1,000 so that you can store food up for December, for January. If nothing happens, pass it out. No big deal. When are you going to start doing what it takes to help your community, not just you and your family? What's another thing that you can do? Not just store up food, but also buy commodities. As we know, in times of crisis, stock market for commodities goes up. And now let's take a look. Dana Coverstone nor I are financial advisors. We cannot guarantee that these things will happen or will not happen. We are not guaranteeing that you should invest or you shouldn't invest. But here's who we are, and this is what we do. So every day on TikTok, we post at stock charts trades that would help educate people on how we trade. We've already posted this information about commodities. We're up to 17,000 viewers on it. We talk about inflation. We've talked about the presidency. And in September on election years, the stock market goes down 16%. What did we see? We saw that technology, QQQ, came off of its highs almost 30% in September. Weeks ago, we talked about trade war with China. We also talked about what do you need most as a human being? Do you need shelter? Do you need food? Or do you need gas? Also on YouTube, stock charts trading. We have longer videos. Best trading strategy for 2020 or trading futures. This is commodities we're talking about there. So here you can see for the last 10 years, corn prices have really gone low. Remember when I talked about 2010, right after the financial crisis, commodity prices went really high. So let me ask you, have you ever heard the thought buy low, sell high, like Warren Buffett says? I think you could buy right here at around $13, 100% profit up into this $28 level. Ticker symbol SOYB is an ETF, just like corn ETF. Soybean prices were extremely low right in April. And then what happened? Prices started to go up and rally. Food is starting to become valuable. So right here in this $15 level, buy it and hold it until it gets up into this $22 level. Here's wheat, its lowest low in 10 years. You could buy it in this $6 area, and you could see that there's a good resistance right around this $13.50, giving you over 100% profit. Here's seed. Guess what they do? That's right, seed. You think my ideas are crazy, but from these lows of the pandemic up to these highs, price moved 400%. Did you hear me correctly? 400 times your money. And I think in crazy times, seed, the ticker, will go up to $30. If you buy it now at $10, that gives you a 200% move. What's the other commodity that Dana Coverstone talked about? He talked about gas. He talked about walking away from gas stations. Well, if there was no gas, wouldn't that make gas really expensive? So you could buy Gush at $23 and it go up to $65 back to these old highs, which is resistance level. Dana also talked about people in their homes with coats on. Power outages, maybe natural gas is limited to some of these power companies, and so they have shortage, and that would make oil go up. If you see right here, October 2016, natural gas went up 100%. Here you can see 2018, that natural gas went up starting in October just before winter. That's a 200% move. So where are we right now? October, oil is at $37. What if it goes up 200% from here? I think it could go up to around $200, maybe even more. All commodities are important, but especially food commodities. So I end with Harry Kissinger. Control the oil and you can control the nations. Control the food and you can control the people. When Dana Coverstone said there was going to be long food lines, what do you think you should do to keep from being controlled? Like and subscribe, ring that bell.